Here we come, blue and white, and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight, and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job, and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Brunton Bugle, the number one place to get a Carlisle United fix in the podcast world. I'm Lee Rooney.
And I'm Dan McLennan.
United's long wait for a win at Newport goes on as they're held to a draw in South Wales. We look back on the stalemate at Rodney Parade while looking forward to this week's trip to Grimsby Town and the visit of Crewe Alexandra to Brunton Park this weekend.
With a pass so true to Boulder Stone and Clark's in view. There's a cross and a run, the old one.
Yeah, 33 years of hurt. Never stopped us dreaming, eh? That win at Newport. It's still waiting. We still haven't won a Rodney Parade, actually. To be fair, that's one word.
Fourth draw, wasn't it?
Yeah, because I think it was Somerton Park they used to play at, wasn't it? Before they got kicked out of the league originally. So quite a few draws now there. So it's getting a little bit frustrating. Just can't quite get over the line, can we? But overall, we'll come on to it in a minute. But yeah, reasonably.
Yeah, we've drawn our last 3 games there.
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? And actually, in all 3 of those games, we probably should have won as well with the number of chances and bits. I mean, this weekend maybe a little bit more balanced than the others, but there you go. How you doing, mate? You okay? Good?
Yeah, not too bad. Cheers.
Good stuff. We'll get straight into it. Basically, we're doing.
I would say a little bit different this week, aren't we? Because work schedules and that, and Mike's on holiday in Florida, so
yeah.
Double header early in the week.
Yeah, it's unusual because normally we do the double header on a Friday, don't we? But this time round we were like, well, it was always going to be a struggle to get the Crewe one in, especially as without giving too much away. I'm going to be up in Carlisle on Thursday, and yes, hopefully you'll see some special episodes coming in the near future as a result of that. Can't tell you too much, can we, just yet, Dan? But I think people can probably put 2 and 2 together with that one. I think it's fair to say. Right, as usual, reminder that our sponsor for the podcast is the Carlisle United Supporters Club London branch. The London branch is open to all Carlisle United fans. They've got members from Cornwall to Dundee and Houston to Singapore, and of course every part of London and the South East. They regularly meet up for away trips, as well as arranging many social events, sports games, and doing fundraising for the club. They'll be providing us with information for the away games part of the preview section this season. You can find out more about London Branch at their website, carlisle.londonbranch.org. There you go. That's the sponsors bit out of the way. Big thanks to them as usual. Reminder as well, if you don't already, subscribe to the podcast on whatever podcast app you use, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pocket Cast. Just search for the Brunton Bugle, click subscribe, and every time a new episode comes out, you'll get a little alert saying new episodes here, and click download and listen to it at your leisure. And also, if you can give us a review on any of those apps, I think it's, as we said before, Spotify and Apple Podcasts are the main ones, and we've got some really good reviews now. Very generous, thank you very much. And if you haven't already, please do that, because it really does help us. It gets more people to know about the podcast too. And on social media, follow us at Brunton Bugle on Twitter and Instagram. We're also on Facebook, Brunton Bugle, search for it and click like. And we're on the Be Just and Fear Not Facebook group and on the Cummins.net message board. And you can email us, bruntonbugle@gmail.com. Right, let's get into the news then, Dan. A couple of little bits of news this week. Been a quiet few weeks. We've finally got a couple of bits. A bit that broke on Friday after we recorded, actually, wasn't it? And this is a loan move for one of the youth goalkeepers.
Yeah.
Sorry, a little bit of a delay there. I left it for you to explain it rather than me. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Youth team keeper. Sorry, my phone cover's just bloody covered up.
It's all right.
Lewis Boyd
yes,
has joined Carlisle City on what they deem a work experience.
That's basically a loan move for a youth team player, isn't it? A work experience.
Yeah, and with it being based in Carlisle, it's basically he still trains with us, probably goes down and does a bit of training with them, and plays for them. Yeah,
it's a good little move. I mean, I feel sorry for Lewis because he's in a really tough situation as a youth team guy. Because any other youth team player come before, like Sam Fishburne gets a pro deal, right? And Nick Bellado and all the other, youth strikers can still look and think, oh, I've still got a chance of getting a deal here. But Lewis Boyd must look and think, well, there's 2 goalkeepers there who've been getting professional deals. Yeah, they're very highly rated. I'm going to have to be extraordinarily good probably to have a chance. And that's not to dismiss him and say he hasn't got any chance, but
he's a big lad as well.
He is, yeah.
He's a good 6'2", 6'3" already.
Yeah, and he's only 17, so he's got every chance of
we breed big goalies up this way, don't we?
We have got a habit of breeding good goalkeepers as well, not just big ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a good move for him, isn't it? Get a bit of men's football into him now, nice and early, and give him a chance to show what he can actually do potentially. Because I can't remember, are Simons and Fishburne both out of contract this summer, or have they got another year?
Simons and Breeze.
Simons and Breeze.
I will have to check.
I have a feeling they are, but I think there might be an option there, possibly.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there'll be an option.
And they seem to rate them both highly, so I won't be surprised if they end up both staying probably for another year. But yeah, a good move for him, isn't it? I think he made his debut at the weekend, didn't he? I think they got beat by, was it Padiham? I think they got beat by at the weekend.
Yeah.
100% certain on that one, but it was a close game from what I remember. It was only maybe 1 or 2. Probably should have checked that before we recorded. But
who's that? Carlisle City?
Carlisle City, yeah.
Towlaw.
Towlaw, sorry, you're right. It was someone else who was playing Padiham. I think.
Where I have been to watch Carlisle United in a friendly.
Was that the friendly we had to play for signing Brian Wake, was it, by any chance?
Possibly related to that, but I know it was on a Friday night. It was a 7 o'clock kickoff, and we decided to go at 6:05. So we shot over the 69 and onto the 68. And if anyone's ever been to Towlaw, it's an interesting place.
I've heard it described as the time that land forgot. Basically, it was quite something else.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting.
Interesting indeed. Right, well, the only other bit of news, Dan, is the fact that the tickets have gone on sale for Hartlepool away. Obviously, Hartlepool away is in a couple of weeks' time. And something stood out to this, and you spotted this, and quite a few of us spotted this, is the allocation for this game.
Yeah, it's very reduced. 685, I think it was. We normally get about 1,000, don't we? And I think this is in response to there's been a few broken chairs the last couple of visits and whatnot. And
others have pointed out that they've covered up the front seat, like the front couple of rows of seats.
Yeah.
And yeah, it might not be just because of us that's happened, but I have a feeling that it's one of the many catalysts of this, that us and maybe a couple of other clubs have gone there, probably not behaved themselves that much, and as a result, the police have been like.
In a slight defence, the Hartlepool away end is old, it is knackered, and the seats are useless. I would don't get me wrong. There will be some that have been snapped deliberately. Not arguing that, but I think 1 or 2 have possibly also been damaged when celebrating a goal, etc. Because of that old.
I was actually going to say this as well. It's a fair point, that, and the point I've got is with that is that the problem with Hartlepool, it is a small, it's a tight, and it's a horrible away end. It's not as bad as Barrow, for instance, but it's not great. There's pillars all the way along the seats. Yeah. It's basically a terracing with seats bolted to it, essentially. That was done in like the 90s, that wasn't it? So that tells you all you need to know. And the problem is we get 1,000 tickets. And all the young lads want to go because it's a local away game at Derby. If you want to go, that's fair enough. But none of them want to sit in the seat they've got because their mates aren't there, as you'd imagine. Of course, that's going to be the case. So everyone tries to gather in all their own bits, and lots of areas end up crowded. It's not a fun away end to be in, is it, at the best of times? And as a result, that's why when a goal goes in, there are surges and things like that. So it's one of those ones. I mean, Hartlepool have had that for years now. It amazes me that they've not done anything with that stand. I mean, they've not done anything with the whole ground, have they? For that long, so it's not that much of a surprise, really. So
I remember when the away end used to be the opposite end when it had no cover.
Oh wow, I didn't even know that was the case.
Yeah, we went there. Was it 94-95 when we beat them 5-0, 5-1?
Was that the
and
day?
Then played Bury the next day
and won 3-0. I mean that's glory days, isn't it? 2 games in a row, 8 goals in 2 games. The players today don't know they're born with their. The long breaks out between matches now. There you go. Right, well, that's enough of the news section. Let's get into the match review. Another away game, another draw. I mean, we've only lost 1 on the road. We've yet to win, but we're proving a tough team to beat on our travels, aren't we?
Yeah, it was another one of those, wasn't it? If it had played another 5 or 10 minutes, I think we would have snuck this one.
We're taking a bit too long, aren't we, to get into games away from home a little bit.
I mean, I don't think we were brilliant on Saturday.
No.
I don't think we really got going till late on.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Patrick out. Dennis played, but was he 100%? Possibly not. It just didn't click at all, did it?
No, it's a strange one because, like I said, we're struggling to get those wins away from him. We're struggling to get the performances going early on in those games. We're coming to life in the second half mostly of these matches. But what I'd say is we're showing ourselves to be very resilient, aren't we? We're showing ourselves to be able to fight back when we go behind and to dig in and get some sort of a result from the game. Give an example, right? Let's go back. We're recording this on the Monday. So let's look to a year ago yesterday on the Sunday. What happened then? We got battered 4-0. We got battered 4-0 at Sutton United.
Yes, yeah, I saw
Think back to that 12 months on. You could not imagine this Carl United side putting in a performance pathetic as that now, could you?
No, that was pathetic.
So that's the big difference. We've gone from a side that looked an absolute shambles at Sutton and quite rightly got beat 4-0 by a fairly average side to one now that, we'll go to these games and even if they're not at their best, we'll still get something. We'll still get a result. And that's the key thing, isn't it? So yeah, I mean, going into the game, Dan, starting lineup, there was always doubt over the strike force, wasn't there? There was always a feeling of maybe probably Dennis would be fit, but Patrick maybe wouldn't be risked, and that proved to be the case. And Jack Stretton got his first start, but then just before kickoff, the knees broke, didn't they? I mean, we joked, didn't we, that we might replace the theme tune on here with the casualty theme tune because the injury issues we've had this season. But Morgan Feeney in the warm-up pulling up, just not what we needed right now, is it?
Not at all, no. Especially as his captain as well, Yeah. But it happened, and Corey Whelan stepped in.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about Corey in a bit because I think he definitely deserves a lot of credit for what he's done this season overall, not just in this game. But yeah, I mean, not the ideal thing. Obviously, Jack Ellis then stepped up onto the bench as the 19th man in the squad to make that up. But yeah, just having that coming in the build-up as well, you just think nothing's really going our way in terms of injuries. Yet we're not losing games. That's the mad thing. I know I keep repeating it, but it's quite incredible, isn't it?
Well, that's it. I mean, not to jump too far ahead, but if we beat Grimsby by 2 goals, we go 8th.
Yeah.
Which given the injuries we've had, won't be too bad,
Again, I put that down as a talking point for a bit, but I genuinely think that's a phenomenal start to the season, all things considered. Okay, Dan, so let's get on to talking about the goals. So we'll talk about the chat. We'll mix the chances in because we always talk about the goals, then go on to the chances. I think it's probably better if we maybe try and mix the lot in now from going forward. So yeah, I mean, first half, not a huge amount of chances, was there actually, overall for both sides, really? I mean, our two main ones were Owen Moxon, weren't they, basically? So, I mean,
yeah.
First one that actually came from a pretty tame shot from Omar Bogle at the other end, and we broke really quickly down the right. Did really well. A good play, found Moxon on the edge of the box, and he tried a sort of curling, dipping shot, but he just didn't get enough dip on it, did he? He went well over the bar. And then, he had an even better chance, didn't he? It's one of those ones where he just didn't quite have his footing quite right, did he, for it? So, ball from back in from the right finds that Moxon with I think it was a poor clearance by the defender actually to the edge of the box, and he's just trying to slide to it, isn't he? And he just loses his footing on his standing foot and sends it wide in the end. It's a bit unlucky, really, isn't it? Really, it's not. I mean, on the radio they sort of described it as, I think James said it was, really should be scoring that chance. I don't think it was quite that good of a chance. It's a good chance, and he should probably be testing the keeper. But yeah, he'll be frustrated with it anyway. But yeah, and then up the other end, Newport sent a header wide from a free kick, and then the goal. I mean, this was a frustrating one, wasn't it? Because it comes from us having the ball in the opposition corner flag to then going right up the other end and scoring, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was Stretton, wasn't it? He was holding it up, and I'll tell you something, that lad got nothing from the referee, did he? Absolutely shocking.
I've not put the referee down as a talking point, but we will have to talk about it.
Not so much as a talking point, just the fact that Stretton got nothing from him,
He missed 2 or 3 corners for us as well in the first half, which baffled me as well. But I mean, he's a championship referee. He should be a lot better than that, really. But yeah, you're right. Stratton didn't get any support, did he, basically? And someone, not even just from the ref there, but someone should be up there getting there. Finn back was just a little bit too slow to get up to him, and maybe one of the midfielders actually really should have been the one there to spot him, maybe Gibson or Moxon. So, a bit frustrating. That ball comes to the pitch, and Gibson actually did quite well at first to track back. Initially wins the first ball, but then the ball gets loose and the lad gets away from him. And the ball in, I've heard a few people say, we got caught out. But for me, I think Mellish is caught in, not in two minds, but caught in a thought of, if I dive in and miss it, it's a penalty. And I think he takes the gamble of not throwing himself in. The lad gets to the ball just ahead of him, and it's a really clever little finish, actually, of a Howley. It's a good finish from Mariah Welsh. Newport have got a lead, and when you look back at it, we had another chance after that. We're back. Had a chance in the box. We had ball in from Gibson on the right, nodded down by Dennis Gapp. Back sort of snatches at the shot a little bit. It's a difficult one for him to get anything on. The keeper saves early. They go into half-time 1-0 up, and they've not really threatened us, have they? And that, again, it's not the first time that's happened recently, where we've probably had the better chances and yet not taken them, and the opposition get one chance and that they're in the lead.
Yeah, we didn't create that much ourselves first half. They get a half chance, convert it, and 1-0 down half time.
Simon was very clear after the match. He was not happy with the first half. He felt the energy levels weren't right, and I kind of agree. I still think we played some nice stuff though. When we get the ball into space, we knock it about nicely with that midfield three. But I just couldn't put my finger on it. We're just not taking those chances at the moment, and maybe we do need those extra attacking options on the bench to give us some options to put a bit more pressure on the other players. I don't know, but into the second half. And it took a while, but the goal, I mean, we talked about an unlikely source last week, arguably just as unlikely in his 50th appearance, having not originally been planned to start the game. Corey Whelan gets the equaliser, doesn't he?
He does. It was a corner again, corner from the right. I can't remember who it was, went for the ball, and it's sort of on the near post run.
I think it was Huntington, possibly.
Yeah, and it didn't get a good contact. It came across, and it just sort of landed at Whelan, didn't he? He just turned and hit a low shot, and
it's a really, you know what? He probably deserves a bit more credit for the finish that he might get, because it's a controlled finish. It's not. He hasn't completely lashed at it. He basically said, "I'm going to hit this on the target with a little bit of power," and it takes a little bit of flick off a defender. I think it would have gone in whether he touched it anyway, the defender, but yeah, fantastic reward for his efforts, and shows just how well we're working on set pieces at the moment, doesn't it? And Huntington is the one causing the bother, but it frees up players like Whelan to have chances, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was just reward for I think Paul Simpson's mentioned a few times about Whelan. We're always ready to step in, and we values him. And 50th game, nice time to score.
Yeah, again, we'll go a bit more in depth on Whelan in a minute, because I think it does deserve a bit of a shout out. There's only really two more chances in the game, one for each side. I mean, Newport, long throw from the right, flicked on really well into the 6-yard box, and I've watched this back, and it's Finn back who either knees or chests the ball back to Holy. I don't know whether he was meaning to do that, but it comes across as very calm and very like, wow, if he doesn't get a touch, then the attacker's going to score a goal there. So really good stuff from Finn, really good covering. Up the other end, so close to potentially goal of the season. Well, one of the goals of the season, wasn't it? From Paul Huntington. Yeah. I mean, it's a corner that comes in and it sort of just bobbles up, doesn't it, really, from a defender. Sits up really nicely, and it's not an easy chance to take this, because he's having to run back to the ball. It's not set up in front of him, has it? He's coming sort of across and back, gets around it and smashes a volley off the bar that a couple of inches lower, and like I said, you've got a goal to win any game, basically, haven't you? Brilliant strike, and that's it. Basically, that was the only other real chance. We didn't really create a huge amount after that, and looking back on it, 1-1 a fair result, really?
No complaints. I don't think either side did enough to win the game.
Yeah.
Like I said at the top of the programme, another 5 or 10 minutes, it might have been interesting. I think we'd have pushed it close. But no, a draw was about right for me.
I mean, we're very careful on here to not focus too much on the stats, aren't we? When you say stats can be misleading, but it is a positive to see that of the last few games, we're starting to dominate possession a bit more. Because early on in the season, we weren't doing that so much. We were, 40s, sometimes 30s for possession. 58% possession for this game. In terms of pass success, that's gone up a lot as well. So previous games, it's been 50 at best sometimes. 69% pass completion. So that's a real good positive to take as well. So we're starting to dominate games a little bit. And this is not without a fully fit squad as well. So there's the real positive to take from that, isn't there?
Last couple of games, I've been impressed with number of corners we've had as well. I think it's 6 on Saturday away from home, 11 against Wimbledon. Mansfield game, funnily enough, we actually had 0 corners.
Yeah, that was strange.
Rochdale, I think we had half a dozen or so. We highlighted how the Newport fella had mentioned our threat from corners. So keep it up.
Yeah, it's good to see, isn't it? It's good to see. Well, should we do we've only got one 60-second review. There's only 188 Blues fans there, to be fair. So it's not a huge amount to pick from. But Chris Foster, I've known him for many years, and he's a long-term listener. He sent us a 60-second review from his trip to Newport.
Hi there, Chris Foster here, Bristol-based Carlisle fan, giving my 60-second review of the Newport game. Nice, easy away day for me. Shame about the performance. Ought to have put a lot more pressure on, and I think we would have quite easily got a result if we'd been a bit more forward. A lot of missed opportunities to shoot or take people on where the ball is then played sideways. Didn't appreciate that too much. Referee was abysmal, but we got away with Gibson not being sent off, which was a plus. Nice to see Corey Whelan getting on the goal sheet at in the second half, although all the energy went out of the game with the prolonged injury to their number 5. A better pundit than I said recently that they weren't going to blame anyone for the goal, but it was John Mellish, and again a bit of a misunderstanding between him and Huntington led to a very scrappy goal. Can't say much more than that. Point on the road isn't the worst result, but we ought to have got more anyway. Up the Blues.
What better pundit do you reckon he's referring to then? Is he referring to us or Lummy? I have a feeling it'll be Lummy probably, because we're not better pundits. I get his point saying Mellish was maybe a fault, but like I said, I think it's one of those ones where he's just caught in those two minds of, if I dive in here, I'm going to give away a penalty. So yeah, the lads nipped in really well, to be fair. It's a good play from him and a good finish. He's mentioned Gibson there, which brings us on quite nicely actually to one of the talking points I picked out. That's Gibson discipline. Now, we know that Jordan's dad, Andy, has listened to the podcast a few times. So if you're listening, Andy, please take this as a constructive criticism of Jordan. But that's the second time in 3 games he's picked up a silly, unnecessary yellow card for what you'd argue is dissent, or, not even like the tackle itself or anything like that, isn't it? It's obviously the one against Mansfield was kicking the ball at the player. That was just frustration of not getting many free kicks all day. I can sort of understand that. But this one, free kick was given against him, and I think it was a harsh free kick. I feel like the lad had fouled him, and I think it was maybe given for like an accidental hand in the face. But when the player goes down like that, holding his face with it, you can't just try and pick him up. You can't. If you pick him up by the scruff of his shirt, he probably is lucky that the ref has been a little bit generous to him there, and maybe thought, okay, he's just frustrated, I'll just give him a booking. But then he dived in, and I say dived in, he went in for a tackle a little bit after that, and obviously was probably lucky that he didn't get a second yellow there, and then refs basically told him that's your last tackle, and then Simo's taken out of the referee's hands and subbed him for Hilton. He needs to learn to cut it out, doesn't he? And I'm saying this because he's such a big player for us, and when he's on his game, when he's at his best, he is a top player at this level. I listened not to the Newport County podcast that we did the bit with. I listened to another one. There's another guy who's new to League 2 football. He started following Newport, and he does a podcast with the guy who did the analysis tweets. And he described Gibson as like the League 2 De Bruyne, which is probably a little bit. He did say, I'm being a bit, I'm not saying he's as good as De Bruyne, but in the same way, he's the kind of player who starts out as a winger, but he's more playing as a number 10, and he drifts into those wide areas. And I can sort of see what he means in terms of that, the style of play, not the quality necessarily, but it's something he just needs to get a grip of quickly, because the risk isn't it, Dan, that clubs are going to look and say, he's easy to wind up. Let's get at him early on in the game.
Yeah, it's similar to how clubs seem to target John Mellish that we've mentioned before.
Which is bizarre.
Which clearly doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Just it can be frustrating, especially in the position he plays. Especially away from home. Which don't want you to get a silly booking. Then if you do get a deserved booking, you're talking a red, aren't you? And then you're missing a game,
Yeah.
But I think it's just wanting to do well, isn't it? And,
I think
I can understand the frustration.
Yeah, I think it's more highlighted by the fact that it's coming two of 3 games in a row, so isn't it? Basically, so two of those 3 it's happened, and it's been quite. The fact that he's been subbed not long after tells you that there's a realization there. There's a worry of him. So it's the way he plays as well. He likes to win the ball back, doesn't he? He's not an attacking flair player who just stands by and watches the game happen around him and waits for the ball to come to him. He wants to win the ball. He goes chasing it, which is to his credit. I just don't want to end up losing him for a few games because he is a big part of the way we play, and teams keep highlighting what a good. I mean, the guys on the D3, D4 podcast have all said they really like the look of our midfield of Moxon, Guy, and Gibson, and they're guys who know their stuff in League Two. So yeah, just calm me down a little bit, Jordan. That's all we're saying. Let's talk about Corey Whelan now, then, Dan. We've sort of slightly touched it already a couple of times, but full credit to him. I think this is where I definitely need to put my hands up here. I think we both felt on the pod in the summer, didn't we, that he was possibly this kind of player who someone might say you're free to go and find another club if you want, but he's knuckled down, and there's arguments that maybe he's potentially 5th choice as far as centre backs go now. If you're playing a back 3, that always gives you more options still to be involved, but his attitude seems to be a really good one, and Simo really appreciates that in a player, doesn't he? A player who's prepared to work hard, and when the chance comes, take it.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, Paul Simpson said several times about he's the classic sort of professional. He comes in, does his bit. He's obviously well respected. He's made captain when Feeney drops out. That speaks volumes.
He is vice captain, isn't he? Basically, he's a guy in terms of that.
Yeah, and there's 2 or 3 times when he sort of stepped in this season, and he's proven his worth.
I mean, I think I go back to like the 2005-06 season. You had Simon Grant that season, didn't you? He was always willing to step in and do a job when he was needed. Albeit up front quite often towards the end of the campaign, wasn't he? But he was someone who Simo always knew, right? He'll knuckle down. He'll do his job when he comes in. He won't complain about the fact that he's not involved. So you're not going to be happy not to be involved, but he's more than capable of doing a job when he's available.
I think also, originally the back 3 this season was going to be Mellish on the left, Feeney in the middle, Barkley on the right, with Whelan more as a backup, and then obviously Idahen came in. Obviously Huntington came in as well, which, we've got a little bit of a surplus of centre-backs, you could argue now, because we've got 6 of them, haven't we? But 7 if you include Ellis, so... Yeah.
So we've got players more than capable of coming in there, and I think that's an area where we're so strong, aren't we? I said this to both the Crewe podcast and the Grimsby podcast. I did bits for their podcast with them, and I said to them, actually, when you look through it, we talk about we've got some, an exciting goal scorer and a really good midfield. Actually, defensively, we look. Problem is, we've shipped a few silly goals in recent games, but overall, we look so solid in most matches, and that's a massive, massive positive to take, isn't it, over the way we're playing at the moment. Away woes. Still not to win on our travels this season. We've only lost 1, though, to be fair. That was the Stevenage game where I think we all agree we just were not at the races that day. If you go back into last season, that's 9 away games without a win since the 2-1 victory over Barrow back in April. Any reason to be worried about that, do you think? It's one of those ones... I know we used it last week when we talked about, we haven't lost at home for so many games, but... I'm always a bit funny about dragging those records into separate seasons. If you look at this,
I think given the high turnover every club has now, you sort of have to draw a line when it comes to the summer with those sort of things, unless it's one of those classic. I think Wimbledon, even Paul Simpson mentioned that on his post-match about how long it is since they've won games. So. Yeah, I mean, if you look at this season, Stevenage, as you said, we weren't good enough. Just going through the fixtures. Colchester, we did okay. Stevenage, we weren't good enough. Mansfield, you take a point there.
And probably should have won it there. That's the thing with Mansfield. We could have won
that. Same with Newport. Given our record there historically and that, you're happy with a point. But again, could possibly have nabbed it at the end, you know.
I suppose if you look ahead to jumping ahead a little bit here, to the Grimsby game on Tuesday night, if you win that, you look and you think, okay, start of the season away from home, 5 games, won 1, lost 1, drawn 3. You'd probably be quite happy with that, wouldn't you? As long as and we hadn't lost at home yet either, on top of that. You'd be quite happy, wouldn't you?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I mean, what are we now? Is it
13th are we still, I think?
14 points, is it? I can't think what are we? 3-5-1, are we?
Yes, I think we are. Yes, sorry, 3-5-1. Yes,
3-5-1. Yeah, 3 wins, 5 draws, 1 loss.
Yeah,
and you could argue, but certainly one of those draws, possibly 2, could have been the other way around, which would have been another 4 points, and would have been sat 7th or 8th with that. You know,
I mean, I look at the Rochdale and the Mansfield ones that stand out to me. I think Rochdale, we should have beaten them, even with conceding 3 goals. We probably could have scored 5 or 6 that day if we'd been really on our mettle. Yeah. And the Mansfield game, we missed 2 sitters at the end of the day. That's the way you look at it. And, you know, you, like you say, you get 2 wins from them, you're 4 points better off. Well, you're pretty much sitting in 7th at the moment. That's where you'd be. So that's with a game in hand as well. So I'm pretty happy with how it's gone to that.
I am. Yeah.
No, it's all good. Terms of changing the game, obviously Gibson did come off. We mentioned that. Good to see the positive impact that both Harris and Hilton had on the game, really, coming on as subs. I think Harris offers something just a little bit more physical than Moxon, doesn't he? And Hilton's that tricky technical player. We haven't quite seen it yet. Enough in games.
I think I said it at half time, didn't I? That this seemed a game for Harris.
Yeah.
Because there was the odd tackle going in, and I think we seem to think he enjoys that side of the game. So, you know, and Hilton actually looked all right, didn't he?
Yeah, there was one lovely lofty ball he played in trying to find Dennis, and he just overhit it slightly. And if that had come off, what a pass through that would have been for him on goal. But yeah, he looked lively, and he looked like he could actually do a job playing in that wide role, couldn't he? If you wanted to play a 4-3-3 or a 3-4-3 as well. So I think there's definitely options for him there. And it's one of those ones, isn't it? We've got to be patient with him because he is a small, slight lad. It's going to take him a bit while to get used to playing at EFL level. But we can't wait forever at the same time, can we? That's the one problem. So hopefully he recognises over the next few weeks, because he's probably going to get some chances in the near future, because, you know, that midfield three is not going to stay fully fit for the whole season together, are they? So he's got to be ready to take his chance when basically Gibson is injured, or whether we change formation and it throws up an opportunity for him. So I do wonder if it's one maybe we might even look on. If Patrick's not fit, do you maybe switch to a front three instead and stick Hilton and Gibson either side of Dennis? Possibly. I know maybe a little harsh on Stretton, but that's an option you could look at, I suppose.
Yeah. I know he's appeared in that one we don't talk about, but he'll be chomping at the bit, you would think. And like I say, you know, if he continues like he did when he came on Saturday, hopefully it'll all be good. Yeah,
definitely. Got to give a shout out to Nick Bilardo. Made his EFL debut in this game. Obviously, we don't talk about the trophy games. He made his first team debut, if you want to say, and that alongside Ryan Carr. But nice to see him now make his debut in the league as well.
His league debut, yeah, good stuff. So reward.
Yeah, he's only got a few minutes on the pitch, but it just shows, you know, if Simo's never been the kind of manager to just give players a chance just for the sake of it, even with injury issues. But he's given him a chance later on this game and thrown him on, hasn't he? And said, go and show me what you can do. So I think it's a matter of time probably before him and Carr get given pro deals, you'd imagine. If they get,
you would certainly think they'd be favourites, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I mean, we tend to get those deals done for the ones that are exceptional quite early now, don't we? So interesting to see how the pair of them get on there. But yeah, Dan, before we get on to just doing a quick League 2 roundup, we're pretty much 1/5 through the way through the season now. Happy with where we are?
Yeah.
I think I've seen a few people.
There's not much more to say to that.
I've seen a few people sort of getting grumbles saying, "Oh, we should be beating Dross like this about Newport." I mean, Newport aren't Dross. They're still a decent side. They're on a little bit of a sticky run. They've still got some good, solid players in there. And like I said, when I look through it, the fact that we're sitting in 12th. Sorry, I said 13th. We're actually 12th on 14 points. Obviously, we only lost one game. We've got a game in hand, which if we win, we go to the edge of the playoffs, basically. And then we play Crewe at the weekend. We can pull away from them, and they're just above us right now, 1 point above. I think with all the injury issues we've got, bear in mind, we've probably had on average 6, 7, 8 maybe players out injured consistently since the start of the season. And most of them have been our attacking options. I think that's pretty good going, don't you?
Yeah. Like I say, we've had quite a few injuries at the top end of the pitch. We keep saying it is going to happen one week where we do click and batter someone. Hopefully Tuesday or Saturday would be nice.
Yeah, that'd be nice to see, wouldn't it? But I think Tuesday's going to be a bit more of a test than probably we've had for a while.
Yeah, possibly, yeah. But no, I'd rather be where we are than in possibly a false position.
Yeah, yep. Right, well, let's do a quickly 2 roundup before we get on to the preview section. Dan, best ever start to a 4th tier season from Leyton Orient. 9 wins and a draw from the first 10 games. I think the next best was York City in 92-93. I think after 9 games they had 24 points rather than 25, so obviously they couldn't match this anyway. But a phenomenal start for them, especially obviously beating Barrow, who were in second place in this game of the weekend.
Interesting, Barrow's 2 defeats have been against the 2 teams above them now.
Yeah, I have a feeling that it's probably not a bad thing for Barrow.
Sorry, 2 of the 3 defeats.
It's probably not a bad thing for Barrow to be flat track bullies, to be honest, because it keeps them away from trouble, is the way I look at it. And I don't sound negative. Well, maybe I do want to sound negative about Barrow there, but I can't see them being in trouble just because they seem to be able to beat the teams down by the bottom and get themselves away from that. So I think they've probably put themselves in a position now where, it's not guaranteed they're going to stay up, but it would probably take a bit of a collapse from them this season to be at risk of going down, I think. I know it's early days, but you may disagree on that because you've always got money on them to go down. So.
Yeah.
But Orient, phenomenal start, isn't it, really, all things considered. Did some good work in the summer, very selective with the signings, but really good work. And Richie Wellens, he's just a good manager, isn't he, basically? Yeah, gets the best out of a team. Stockport, their woes continue, don't they? They're really not adapting to life in football. I mean, you sometimes see sides coming up that, winners, champions, have a bit of a slow start. But with the amount they've invested overall, especially on top of what they already had in the summer, I did not see them struggling this much, did you?
No. And I think when you look at the squad, no. So you have to sort of ask what's going on there, don't you?
I do wonder if David Challoner might be under a bit of a scrutiny soon in terms of how he's getting on there. Cause,
I'm just looking at the league record. The last 4 games, won 1, drawn 1, lost 2.
Was the win against Harrogate there? Something like that or something? I think it wasn't someone very good.
They beat Wimbledon at home.
Well, Wimbledon,
they drew with Harrogate. They beat Colchester at home. Yeah.
Poor sides they're beating. Not beating anyone who's any good, are they? That's the problem for them. You do wonder if Dave Challoner might be under trouble. I mean, it does ask the question, what are their defenders like if they let Ben Barkley go on loan to us and he looks he looks more than capable at this level, and they're quite happy to let him go out on loan. It does bring into question their judgment a little bit, I think it's fair to say. Big shout out to Rochdale, got their first win of the weekend, didn't they? This was a dramatic one. Did you see what happened in this game? They took the lead through a penalty, Devante Rodney. And then into the second half, a foul in the Rochdale box, and Colchester got their own penalty. Freddie Sears stepped up, but Richard O'Donnell saved it. I saw this, yeah. It's a great save from him as well, and that must be a real boost for them. But I mean, for Colchester, they look abject. Apparently, they are going to look for an outsider for the new manager because I watched the Football League highlight on ITV. And they said, Steve Ball returned to on an interim basis to take over. I'm thinking, hang on, was he not the manager last season or 2 managers ago or something? Or because it was Wayne Brown was in charge, then it was Hayden Mullins, but it was Steve Ball before it. I can't keep up. They just seem to recycle the same managers over and over again, don't they? Yeah. So they really do need an outside face in there, I think, to freshen things up a little bit. We mentioned last week, didn't we, about Walsall, Dan? They really cannot buy a win at all, can they? 1-0 defeat to Tranmere. Late goal in this one, 96th minute as well, so tough one for them. And Crawley Town, they look a mess, don't they?
Well, some of us predicted this.
It really annoys me, this, because this is the first season, I think, that I've not predicted them to go down or be right down near the bottom. I thought they'd be solid. I didn't think they'd be up there like some may have predicted, but I thought they'd be solid. And they've just been awful. I mean, did you see the tweet they put out about where they were going to be scouting on Saturday?
Yeah.
So for those who aren't aware, there was a charity football game took place at I think it was at the Valley, wasn't it, this weekend, between a load of YouTubers. Now, I'm not down with the kids. I don't know if you are, Dan, and if you're a big fan of the Sidemen or Mark Goldbridge or people like that.
I've heard of Mark Goldbridge. I've not heard much complimentary about him.
No, that's fair to say. Most Man
United fan, isn't he?
Yeah, he's basically from Nottingham. He's not a real Man United fan. It's not his real name. He's got a weird posh sounding name, hasn't he? I think he's a former police officer, isn't he, or something like that?
Yeah.
Who got into YouTubing and makes phenomenal amounts of money off idiots on the internet. But yeah, so it was a charity match between the Sidemen, which is a group of YouTubers who do entertaining videos on the internet. It's all for the kids. I don't understand it. And they played against another set of YouTubers from the rest of the world. And the Crawley Crypto Bros, Wagme United, who own them, said they were going to be scouting that game for potential signings. Now, I know it may only be a joke or maybe trying to, work with the kids and everything, but when you're having as bad a season as you're having, just don't do that, do you? It's up there with what they did before the opening game with that YouTube video of that guy talking about us, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I feel for the genuine.
It's not going to end well.
No, I really do feel for the genuine Crawley fans there, because it's really not going well at all, is it? No. Just a couple more little bits here, Dan. Obviously, Salford and Stevenage both got late goals again. They're still right up there, aren't they? They're having really good seasons. I mean, you said it before, haven't you? Salford just seem to have got it right this year, don't they?
Yeah, they just seem that little bit better organised. I mean, they're up to 5th now. Don't concede many goals.
No. And interestingly, that they won at Sutton, didn't they? And I saw the highlights for this. I mean, they must have had about 60, 70 fans there, max. I'm not one to slag clubs off and say, they shouldn't be in the league because if they haven't got as many fans or anything, but it's a bit disappointing when you're seeing how low crowds they get, when the amount of money that's been invested into them and stuff. And I'm just convinced that Salford fans don't actually exist and it's CGI.
It was the same with the Harrogate following at Stevenage. It looked like about 54, bless them,
I mean, fair play to them for going and following their team that far for these games, but it's kind of one of these things, and I'm not one for saying clubs should be in the league because they're following, but it does sometimes make you think.
Oh, they're there on merit. They've won the way up, but when you look at some of the teams in the conference, even
in the National League
and lower,
I think back to we talked about before, getting Darlington back in the league. That's something we'd love to see. But there you go. And just one last one, just for you here, Dan. Keith Curl opened up his time at Hartlepool with a 0-0 draw against Gillingham. A team Gillingham are an abject team as well, aren't they? I think, I suspect what Curl's going to do there is get them very well organised and just try and get a few points on board early on, isn't he? I think, like he tried to do with us early on, didn't he? And then it started to go a bit wrong, didn't he? And he just about pulled it back towards the end of the season. So there you go. I don't think you want to talk about Keith Curl any longer, do you, Dan? So shall we move on?
Yeah.
So there you go. Right, we'll take a short break and we'll be back with a preview of the Grimsby and Crewe games.
This is John Mellish. You listen to the Brunton Bugle.
Big bad John there, continuing to have a very good season for the Blues. So it's time to preview the Grimsby and Crewe games. Dan, have you got a question for me? I don't think you have you? I don't think you had time to get my time.
No, chance.
I've got a little question for you and for the listeners. It's a really good one. So obviously, I saw recently someone saying that the last time we won at Grimsby was the 1-0 win, I think it was about 4 years ago, where Clint Hill scored a goal in a 1-0 victory. I think it was Clint's only goal for us, actually, that wasn't it? Big train cannons Clint. Oh, yeah, what a man he was. Anyway, when was our last victory before that? Now, you're going back quite a bit.
At Grimsby?
Yes, at Grimsby. And then what I want you to do is I want you to name the goal scorer that day, and also want you to name the starting 11 if you can.
Bloody hell.
So, in fact, I'll tell you when it was. It was in January 2006 was the last time we won at Grimsby.
2006 at Grimsby, which January 2006.
Yes, January 2006.
So that was the year we won the league.
Yeah.
Oh, let me have a think. Carl Hawley score. Did he score?
No, he didn't.
But he played. Right, Carl Hawley, Derek Holmes.
Yep, Carl Hawley, Derek Holmes.
Midfield, Lummy.
Yep, Lummy's in there.
Chris Billy.
Chris Billy, yep.
Simon Hackney.
Simon Hackney, I don't think he was even on the bench that day. No, but Simon Hackney was an unused sub that day, so no.
Right. Keelan Westwood in goal.
Yeah.
I'm guessing Murphy and Livesey in the middle.
They were two of the defenders, yeah.
Ziggy.
Ziggy did play. He actually played in midfield in this game on the left wing.
Right. Oh.
So you're missing...
So if he played left wing, Murphy possibly played left back.
He did, yeah. So you've missed an obvious one for the...
Kevin Gray?
Kevin Gray for the defender, yeah. Kevin Gray was actually sent off in this game for a handball on the line where he actually caught the ball.
Right back Arneson?
Yep. So you're missing one player. You're missing a midfielder.
A midfielder. It's not Hackney. Adam Murray?
Nope. So bear in mind, I've said you've had your two central midfielders in Lumsden and Billy, and your left winger in
Brendan McGill.
Brendan McGill, yeah, there you go. So that's your lineup. Yeah. So who scored the goals for United that day?
Who scored?
In a 2-1 win.
I'm going to guess Ziggy's in there from the fact that you mentioned he played left wing type thing.
Well, he's in there. He scored both. He scored a brace in a 2-1 win. So there you go. Your subs that day were Glenn Murray came on for Derek Holmes, Simon Grant for Brendan McGill, and Adam Murray for Carl Hawley, and the unused subs were...
Murray was on the bench.
Yeah,
right.
Tony Williams and Simon Hackney. Grimsby were actually second that day. We were fourth. Michael Bridges didn't play because his loan had run out, basically. And he didn't sign permanently until, I think, a few days later after that. So there you go. So yeah, that's a little question there for you if anyone is listening at home. You give it a go yourselves as well, of course. Right, let's get into it then, Dan. So we've got two behind enemy lines section for this week. So what we'll do is we'll do the Grimsby one, then we'll have a little chat about Grimsby, then we'll do the Crewe one, and then we'll have a little chat about Crewe. Bit of a arse about face way of doing things, but there you go. So yeah, for this one, I spoke to I didn't even write the guy's name down. The guy from you'll hear his name in a minute when I drop the clip in. The guy from the DN35 Grimsby Town podcast. Now, if you're wondering why it's called the DN35, it's basically Grimsby Town's postcode, as you'll see me explain to him in a minute. Plenty to discuss about it. We talked about the fact that they were one of only 4 sides to have made a quick return to the Football League. Do you know what the other 3 were, Dan?
Us.
Yep.
Newport?
Nope. I'll give you a clue. They're both in League One at the moment.
Try to think. Fleetwood?
Nope. Got quick return. They have to be relegated, don't they? So.
Morecambe?
No, because they haven't been relegated since come to the league either.
No, I didn't think so. League One. Exeter?
No, they didn't make a quick return. They were here for a few years, actually. Do you want me to tell you?
Cheltenham?
No.
Give up.
Shrewsbury Town and Bristol Rovers are the other two. Shrewsbury obviously the first team to go for the playoffs, weren't they? Yeah. And Bristol Rovers. So, interestingly, actually, if I'm right, all 4 teams that have come up at the first attempt have done it through the playoffs rather than winning the title. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the case, actually. Interesting one, that wasn't it? There you go. Right. So, yeah, we had a good chat about making a quick return to the EFL, the takeover of the club that happened at the start of last season, how that's got on, and why Paul Hurst just works at Grimsby Town. So here's the chat I had with them earlier this week. So I'm here today for the Behind Enemy Lines section, one of the two we've got on this week's episode, with Alex from is it DN35 Grimsby Town Podcast?
Yeah, it's our postcode because we're not important enough, so we've got to go with Doncaster.
that baffles me. A Doncaster postcode for Grimsby. It's a different county. It's just strange, isn't it?
Yeah. You actually have to go across another county to get to us.
I can always get it with Barrow and Lancashire because LA because they were once part of Lancashire, but has Grimsby ever been part of Yorkshire? I don't think else, has it?
Yeah, that's a controversial subject.
I won't get onto that. I won't get to that. Let's get straight into the chat about all things Grimsby Town instead then. So Alex, let's go back to I know sure you don't want to, but the summer of 2021, you went down to the National League, returned after a few years with a bit of a whimper, I think it's fair to say, and you dropped into a division with a lot of big spenders. You're talking about your Wrexhams, your Chesterfields, your Stockport counties. You must be thinking, wow, this is quite daunting, and yet you've come back at the first attempt, managing something that only ourselves, Shrewsbury and Bristol Rovers, have managed in the last 20 plus years. I mean, you must have been maybe a little bit surprised to come back so quickly.
I mean, there's a lot of sort of dazed and confused codheads wandering around North East Lincolnshire still. I mean, and one of the things we had is we had experience of non-league as well. And I assume you're watching everybody. Oldham are going through it. Scunny are going through it.
Scunny really are going through it, aren't they?
Yeah, it's hilarious. Nobody. It's one of those things of these are scenes we wouldn't like to see. While all Grimsby fans are rubbing their hands together, going, "This is brilliant." So you go through that moment. We've already done it, so we understood we were going to lose to Wealdstone. We understood we were going to get hammered at Bromley. So we went into it fully expecting, look, it's going to take a couple of years. You've got Wrexham, like Chesterfield at the time had spent 250 grand on Tishmanga.
Incredible, isn't it? Incredible.
Well, where the hell they got that money from? I have no idea.
Yeah.
I assume the bank account is still looking for it. But and then Wrexham, underdog Wrexham, as they say on their podcast, on their TV show. And then, you had Stockport County who were, they were just so eager to get out of there. Yeah. And then on top of that, you had the half decently run clubs as well, which we see with like Harrogate and Sutton coming up and like best of the rest. And then it was just three mad playoff games where we won them all in the last second of extra time. Beat Wrexham 5-4, which was amazing.
I mean, I was going to ask you about that Wrexham game. I watched that on BT's, but I was supposed to be doing some cleaning around the house that day. And I just had it on in the background, and I ended up just sitting down and watching the whole thing because it was engrossing. It was, I mean, the quality of football wasn't the best as you expect at the National League level, but in terms of entertainment, I mean, for your heart, I imagine it wasn't much good there.
Firstly, how dare you? Secondly, absolutely. It was stunning. I mean, I'm looking forward to the last episode of that documentary. I'll tell you that.
I think we all are.
Yeah.
Speaking as a Carlisle fan, Aaron Hayden, who plays for them, they signed from us. They basically put a bid in for him literally the day before the opening game of last season, which completely screwed us over and left us up a creek without a paddle. So to see them struggling a little bit, I mean, it's annoying because I've watched that documentary and actually the Reynolds and McKinley come across quite well in it. I really want to hate them, but it's tough. It's tough. But there you go.
Well, they've got Sean Harvey on it at least.
That brings you down a peg, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
You see,
So it was stunning, and it was it felt very much because it's three playoff games, and because we finished ranked bottom of the playoffs, we played every game away, so it felt like a mini World Cup. We were like, oh, who have we got in the next round, sort of thing, and it was just that moment. I think we'd worked out Jordan Cropper could throw the ball really far, and no one else we hadn't picked up on that yet. And neither had any team that we were playing. So I think that helped. But it was just one of those special moments, and it'll be something that I will bore people to tears with for the next 20 years. It's amazing.
Yeah, when we came up, it was one of those things like coming back at the first attempt is so vital, isn't it? Because you can find yourself stuck down there for quite a while. As we've mentioned just before, list of some of the teams that have done it is incredible. Let's talk about the man who did it then, Paul Hurst. I mean, how big a part is he playing the rival? Because obviously he was the manager who took you down. I'm doing that with inverted commas there because I think the rot had set in well before he came in. I think we won't talk about the man who was in charge before him because I know from last time we spoke to you, he's not a popular person, let's say. Paul Hurst, though, what is it with him in Grimsby Town? That's, 2 spells now as a manager. I think, 5 years over the first one. Obviously, a bit of a joint manager spell there as well. But it just seems to be a perfect fit for him and your club.
He's underrated. He's massively underrated. He took on, so he did a great job at Shrewsbury. Probably a little bit of a bottle job, he'd probably admit, but given the resources, I thought, job well done. Ipswich are a massively underrated basket gates club, in my opinion. Yeah. And then Scunny, you saw what happened with Scunny.
Yeah.
So I think we're kind of lucky. Rotherham have just lost their manager, and he is their second leading record appearance player.
Oh, dear.
So... The vultures are circling. We were lucky enough to interview the owners of our club on Thursday night, and we asked them about it. And their owner, one of the owners, said we've got him locked in the car boot. So hopefully that's not an issue. But you never know. Heart wins over head sometimes. So I could imagine. But I don't think you'll find a harder working manager in Football League. He's got an incredible knowledge of the players. Sort of the system. He's again pulled out some sort of rabbits out of the hat. He's pretty Gareth Southgate like, quite sort of conservative with a small c, and we'll never pass a team to death sort of thing. But it'll be we'll never say die sort of thing.
I mean, to be fair, when you look through your squad, it's not packed with, star players or anything. So he's clearly a good coach, isn't he? He's clearly someone who you can get the best out of a bunch of players and look, so I can get the best out of their particular qualities. That seems to be what he's really good at.
Yeah, absolutely. He can. One of the things you hear time and time again from players is, I want to come back. I want to come back and work with him. I want to work with him and Doig, and we're getting a good coaching staff together, which is really underrated, I think, and something we probably don't talk about enough. And players want to play for him, so it's brilliant, stunning.
Yeah, really, really good to hear that. In terms of obviously coming back into the league this season, what are the expectations for this first season back? Are you pretty happy with the start? Because I mean, all things considered, again, you've not made any spectacular signings, but it just looks like steady as you go and building on what that fantastic finish at the end of last season.
Well, yeah, and given sort of what we're both a game behind everybody else. So you're going, oh look, well, if we win our game in hand, as everybody
I think we're both saying that, aren't we?
Yeah, we'll be in the playoffs. So, my expectation was anything higher than 14th. Unbelievably, we have never finished higher than that since 2006.
Wow.
Which is it shows sort of what an idea of an ownership we used to have, and so it will be nice to get to that point, because then I think players start looking at you. Not only are we doing things well anyway, but they're then going, actually, they're not a team that are going to be fighting near the bottom, and then we can push on again. But we were saying that last season, and then we sort of just drunkenly, like a pub crawl, ended up in League Two. So you never know; it might happen again.
You mentioned about in terms of your previous ownership. Obviously, I think that came to an end. Was it last summer the new owners came in, or just before that? How are these new guys been viewed? Because I remember talking to you guys, I think it was towards the end of last season, and you were all quite excited about the prospect of these people coming in, because I think that they've got links to Grimsby at the very least, haven't they? I mean, I suppose getting you back at the first attempt's a pretty good go of it, but in terms of stuff off the pitch, how are they doing?
I love them. You can't wish for anything else. Their local boys done good. They're talking about the process. So Jason Stockwood ran sort of 2 of the Times number best places to work employee companies. Says all the right things. When we talked about Hurst leaving, apart from saying, "Oh look, we've locked him in the car boot," said, "Look, if he goes, that's obviously that hurts, but we want to be a place where people not only exceed and go on, but then will go on, because that's the nature of football, and we've got to trust our processes behind it. We're not idiots. We know we'd have to think of things and put things in place, and we do. So yeah, they're amazing, and they're doing all the right things. I'm nervous. It's too good."
Yeah, there's always a worry with that, isn't there, really? In terms of your squad, ask about Max Krokemar. He was on our books, I think, for a couple of seasons. Didn't really play. I think he mostly played in the trophy games, really. He was a backup, and basically our first choice was... I'm not even sure he actually played a league game for us now I think about it. How's he gone with you guys? Because he left us. I think he went to Salford, then he went back to Australia, or to Oceania region, at least for a bit. How's he done?
Yeah, he's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. He replaced a long-term goalkeeper in James McEwen.
Yes,
who the only person that kicked him out of the squad before that was, as you guys know, Dean Henderson.
Yes.
Yep. So he was brilliant, and he was in his testimonial year. Max came in. I'll be honest. Look, he had a couple of dodgy bits, not helped by the defence, but since then he can collect. I've never felt calmer with the ball getting crossed in the box than I have since Max has been in. Oh. He is Danny Coyne-esque, which is a massively niche Grimsby reference.
I remember Danny Coyne. Did he make something insane amount of appearances for you guys? I always remember on Football Manager particularly. I used to try and sign him, but you never wanted Grimsby back in the day. But yeah, exactly. He was phenomenal, and Max is brilliant. His kicking's brilliant as well, really clean and direct. And we've sort of assisted a couple beauty football, sort of goal kick, knock on goal sort of thing. He's been great. He really has. In terms of the rest of your squad, who are the danger men you'd pick out for us to watch out for? I mean, Ryan Taylor's always one that stood out for me. As at this level, he's always been a real, proper good target man. But who else would you pick out?
Yeah, we've got Andy Smith on loan from Hull City at the centre back. He's 19 years old, and he is beautiful. I want to get promoted just so we can go. Can we kind of sign him? Alex Hunt has signed with us on a 3-year deal from Sheffield Wednesday. He is phenomenal. You can tell by his passing, he's from a league above. Really crisp, really quick. And on top of that, you've got people like Jordan Maguire-Drew. If he plays, he's sort of in a bit of a sort of a purple patch at the moment. Really tricky winger, can score a beauty, and he was the one that scored the goal that got us the win at the playoff final. So you've got a couple, but it's about sort of the team is sort of not settled yet. So we've got a couple of options as well.
Well, I've kept you quite a while here, Alex, and I know we're going to be talking on your podcast shortly. So before you finish, a couple of things. One, can you guarantee that it won't be a washout again this time? It's the game, because it was something else, wasn't it?
That you saw the tackle, didn't you? That one was worth the surely worth 4 hours of anybody's day travelling.
I mean, it's one of those ones where I think the referee's giving him a little bit of slack for the weather there, because I think any other time he'd probably been in a little bit of trouble with that tackle. But I mean, it was ridiculous, wasn't it? I mean, he never should have. I mean, we have a group chat with some of the Carlisle fans I'm with, and I remember saying them, what odds are we taking on when this is going to be called off? I said, I reckon 23 minutes. And then when the rest stopped the game in 23 minutes, I was like, am I God or something? Do I know this? But it obviously played it a little bit later than that. But it was fast, guy. And to be fair, I don't think it's not one where you can blame the clubs, is it really? For God like that.
You used to have a manager who, when we played you, he whined about our pitch being too dry.
Who was that?
It'd have been a couple of years ago, so it'd have probably been 2018.
2018. Oh, that'd probably be most likely. That'd be Keith Curl then, probably. I'd imagine.
Yes. So I'll
be
honest.
About right, but Curl's a dividing sort of character with Carlisle fans, to say the least.
You guys are, you're just Goldilockses. What will please you?
Yeah.
Too dry, too wet. You got to. I mean, firstly, Carlisle, you can't moan about a pitch being too wet, but it's just we'll do our best. But
what I'm going to say about the waterlogged pitch thing is that actually, funny enough. But I mean, this sounds ridiculous. But at the times when the floods have happened, in 2016 or whatever it was, we haven't had a game called off for a waterlogged pitch in, I think it's 15, 16 years. Because we redid our pitch in 2006 with a really good drainage system. And ever since then, it's only when the water table goes very high with the floods that there's any problem. Other than that, you watch that every time. So just luck of the draw, isn't it, sometimes?
Yeah, and it came down to, this is really weird, but it was a high tide as well. So the water table underneath was actually quite high.
It's a fair point. You are literally, if anyone's not been to Grimsby, right by the sea. You couldn't get much closer. Well, I've taken up a lot of your time, Alex, and we are going to be chatting soon. So before you go, prediction for this game.
We are absolutely terrible at home. You'll win 2-0.
Wow, you were the first guys we've done who've predicted us to win one of these, which is quite incredible. So
yeah, but it's just reverse psychology.
Yeah.
It's
like when that's what it is for the. Yeah. Alex, thanks for your time, and all the best for the rest of the season after this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Speak to you soon.
Yes, thanks once again to Alex. There you see. But while we were putting that clip in, I double checked what his name was. It is Alex that I spoke to from the DN35 Grimsby Town podcast. Really good chat with him. Very, very lively, and yeah, really positive stuff for Grimsby Town right now, isn't it? I mean, they've had interesting that I think he said that they'd never finished above 16th since 2006. That season we just talked about, actually, with that game against them.
Yeah.
It's the last time they finished above 16th in League Two. That's quite an incredible record, isn't it? Really, all things considered. But yes, it's fantastic for them and how well things are going off the pitch as well in terms of the new owners. So, yeah, going into this one, referee for the game, it's the same as the original game, actually. It's Simon Mather. It is second season as an EFL referee, taken charge of 6 so far this season, handing out 26 yellows and no red cards. Last season, though, he handed out 137 yellow cards and 10 red cards in 32 games.
That's high, isn't it?
On average, a red card nearly every 3 games. That's phenomenal. Last season, last United game he took charge of was back in February this year. They 2-1 defeated Salford City. Morgan Feeney and Joe Riley were booked that evening. Interestingly, we talked about this in the first half of the show, Dan. He took charge of the defeat at Sutton last season, the 4-0 defeat, where he sent off Manny Mampala, quite rightly too, for an appalling challenge. So can't really grumble about that one, can we?
No.
Tonight, it's actually, or tomorrow night, sorry, it was recording here, it will be the 50th meeting of the two sides.
We don't do well against them, do we?
We've got a really bad record. In fact, I think this is one of the ones, if you look at the head-to-heads, it's early on that our record is really, really important, like really bad. We do not win much against them at all early on. So going back to 1908, our first meeting in the FA Cup where we lost 6-2 to them. But yeah, so we've only won 11, we've drawn 14 and we've lost 24. So a bit of catching up to do on Grimsby on that one, unfortunately. Yeah, in terms of their summer activity, Dan, in terms of, I mean, we'll get to a point soon where we'll probably stop focusing on the summer transfers. I think we're still just about at the point where we can talk about that, aren't we? Some really interesting signings for them, isn't there? Particularly the lads they got in from Halifax.
Yeah, Niall Maher's the one that stands out for me because he was quite raved about, wasn't he?
He was briefly linked with us, wasn't he? I think, I'm sure at one point.
Yeah,
he was suggesting that he might be a player we were after, but he's gone there, and by all accounts he's doing very well there. I think Anthony Glennon was on loan at Barrow at the end of last season, I think.
Yeah,
possibly.
Yeah.
He seems to be doing quite well there. And Otis Khan is that perennial name that we always talk about, don't we? And he just never quite hits that potential. He's been linked with us 2 or 3 times in the past, hasn't he? And the move's never happened. And there's always a feeling like there's a lot of potential there as a player, but he never quite lives up to it, does he?
Yeah, Otis Khan's one of them who's just floats around, doesn't he? I'm just bringing up his who he's played for.
Yeovil, Tranmere, Mansfield.
I was going to say Mansfield's the one that sticks in my head.
Have I got all of them right there? Yeovil, Mansfield, Tranmere, and Walsall.
Grimsby, Orient, Walsall, Tranmere, Newport, Mansfield, Yeovil, Barnsley, Barrow, Sheffield United.
Oh, he's been everywhere, hasn't he? It's one of the, when does it get to a point with someone like him you think maybe he's not quite capable as a Football League player? But yeah, frustrating one. But by all accounts, he's doing fairly well there. John McAtee is one who did really well for them last season, didn't he? And he left to join Luton this summer, but he's come back on loan, hasn't he? So that's a little bit of a bonus for them. I think they got another player on loan from Luton as part of that deal as well. The big loss for them was Ben Fox, wasn't he? Because I think we watched a bit of National League football last season, didn't we? We both picked him out as a player who looked really impressive, actually, for Grimsby. Really good little midfield player. In terms of the overall squad, one familiar face in there, isn't there? In goal for the Mariners, in Max Crocombe.
Yeah.
As I said to Alex on the chat there, barely played for us. I can't really comment too much on what he was like as a Carlisle player because he played in games that I didn't watch. But other than that, he looks a good solid squad, actually, doesn't it? Gavin Houlihan was a good signing for them. Why Hartlepool let him go last season? I don't know. That was a very strange move. Sean Scannell feels like he should be about 40 years old now. He's been around forever.
I don't think he's featured. He's featured.
Oh, there you go. Maybe he's not as marvellous. Jordan Maguire, Drew's another name I recognise from the National League season. And I think Ryan Taylor actually is one I think he's the kind of player I wouldn't mind seeing at Carlisle. He's a good, strong target man, isn't he? And every club he goes to, I think he's always really appreciated for the work he does, really, as a holding up the ball and that kind of thing.
Yeah, Ryan Taylor, we all know what he does. be worse players we could have,
Yeah, exactly that. Do you think? I mean, I'm trying to think back to when we did the season preview. We were quite middling on Grimsby, weren't we? I don't think any of us thought they would struggle. Didn't think they would be necessarily up near the top. But I suppose that's the advantage of having someone like Paul Hurst as manager, someone who take away the Ipswich job, which, as Alex said, Ipswich are an underrated basket case club, aren't they? In terms of issues they've had. I think they finally sorted them out this season. They look like they're on course to have a really good campaign. I think it's Kieran McKenna is managing.
Kieran McKenna, who was at Man United, wasn't it? Yeah.
Very well thought of. So take that away. And obviously Scunthorpe, we know, are the ultimate basket case club in recent years. Right near the bottom of the National League now. He's a good manager at this level, isn't he? He knows how to do things.
Yeah, he knows what it's about. He'll have his contacts. They're looking all right, aren't they? I mean, of the two upcoming games, I certainly think this could potentially be the harder one.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that.
Even though the 10th and 11th,
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing with Grimsby, there's not many goals in their games, is there?
No, that's true. And obviously, last time out, they played against Swindon Town and lost 2-1, and Taylor did score in that game. Taylor doesn't score that many goals, but he did score the goal for them in this. And yeah, by all accounts, they did not play very well in this game. So there's a kind of a feeling of like, if they go into that with the same performance against us, they could be in trouble, albeit they're maybe not quite so aware of all our injury issues at the moment. But yeah, it's in the form table though. Overall, that was their first defeat in quite a while, wasn't it? In fact, that first defeat since the opening day, that loss to Grimsby, Swindon, which is quite an impressive record, really. I think Swindon haven't lost since the opening day either. So again, that's really good from them. So yeah, I think I agree with you. I think this could be quite a tough one. Do we want to do our predictions now for this one, or do we want to save them until we've done the Crewe section?
We do them now because it's two separate games.
Right, okay, let's do them now. So come on, let's have your Grimsby Town prediction.
I'm going to go for a 2-0 win with goals from Jordan Gibson and Christian Dennis.
Oh, okay, so 2-0 win you're going for there. Oh, what am I going to go for on this one? I'm going to go for a 1-0 win. I think Jordan Gibson will get the goal. 1-0 Jordan Gibson. First time I've not predicted Christian Dennis for ages. So guarantee he'll definitely score a couple now. No, my luck. There you go. Right, let's have Mike's prediction for this game.
So I'm going to back a 1-1 draw with Paul Huntington on the score sheet for us.
Okay, so he's going for another draw. Can't end that run of not winning away from home, according to Mike. But there you go. Right, let's move on to the Crewe section. And once again, we've got a behind enemy line section on this one. And this time I spoke to Stuart. I've got the name written down this time. From the Railwaymen Podcast. What did we talk about with Stuart? Well, we talked about what he described as the worst ever season he's seen following Crewe. And he's followed Crewe probably as long as I followed Carlisle, so since the early 90s. So yeah, he described it as, in terms of performances and just the football, the worst he has seen. Else it resulted in their relegation from League One. The pride that he takes in the club's academy and the ability to produce players, but also the downside of that and the fact that they're not making as much money these days on some of those sales even, which I think is the case for a lot of clubs at our level. And how Concrete Rod and Kelvin Miller are getting on at Gresty Road. So here's the chat I had with Stuart at the weekend. Stuart, last season must have been a real hard slog for Crewe fans. I mean, I had a look before because I found this website that shows you obviously your progress throughout the season in terms of position. And bar the opening game, you spent the whole season in the bottom four. I mean, where did it all go wrong for David Artell? Because it seemed to be doing such a good job there. Obviously, you got you promoted out of League Two, but it all just seemed to fall apart last season.
Yeah, I mean, imagine trying to find new things for a podcast to talk about each week. I'm the real victim here. Where did it all go wrong? God, I tried to sort of blank last season out my memory now. I've talked about it so often. Players leaving, players not wanting to be there, injuries, contract situations, players deciding at the end of August that they wanted to leave and effectively going on strike and forcing their way out of the club. It was a nightmare. It was horrible to watch. I've been watching the Alex since the mid to early 90s. Easily the worst season I've watched with the Alex by a long way, I would say.
Yeah, must have been really, really tough one to work your way through. I mean, especially for fans, considering this was the first full season after COVID and that kind of thing, the chance to actually watch the team live for a lot of people, and to have to put up with that can't have been much fun at all. I mean,
yeah. Six games I think we won all season. I think in the league, a couple more in the cups, but not many. It was slim pickings.
I mean, it must have been a case of like even pretty early on the season must have been like, well, we're going down this season. What's the point getting excited about anything here? Because I mean, for Wimbledon, it was kind of a slow death, wasn't it? I mean, that the first half of the season they weren't that bad, and then they had that horrendous run. And for them, it must have been tougher for you guys. You must have been like quite early on. You're like, yeah, there's not much chance of getting out of this, is this? That can't have been much fun at all.
So I think I first thought we were going to get relegated in September last year, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I kept those views off the podcast till about October, November, just because I don't want to be negative. You know, I want to make a podcast about a team I support that are doing well and I'm supporting. But last year, it was difficult to do that. And yeah, I think it was October, November. I said, I just don't see anything other than relegation for this team, this squad.
Wow. As a club, Crewe have always been really respected, haven't you, for the work that your academy does in terms of bringing through talented players, go to play at much a higher level, and as a result, earn the club a lot of money as well. And you invest a lot of money into your academy, probably more than any other club in League Two at the very least. It must be something that fans can take a lot of pride in, but I suppose a bit frustrating because it's sort of inevitable that they're always going to leave, and it makes it difficult for you to progress up the leagues.
It's one of the things that I'm most proud of about my football club that I support. But there is a feeling at the moment amongst fans. I think it's still the minority, but I think it's a growing minority of, is it worth it? And part of that comes from the fact that we just aren't making the same money from the transfers that we used to. We lost, this is the other thing as well with last season, we lost in an 18-month spell Perry Ng, Harry Pickering, Ryan Wintle, Charlie Kirk and Owen Dale. They are all now in the Championship, bar Owen Dale, who's just joined, Tommy Lowry has just joined him, who is the other one who had a year left at Portsmouth. So high end, I think they're top two at the moment, or they were last time I checked. So losing those players is going to be a key reason why the squad underperformed or didn't perform last year. But also, if we sell those players, we want to be making the money to make it worth it. We didn't really, I don't think, get anywhere near the money we should have done. Owen Dale went for nothing because he was the guy I was alluding to before about going on strike. Harry Ng had 6 months left on his contract, went for about $500,000. Harry Pickering went for 750. These players are good. Like Harry Pickering, for example, will be a Premier League player. I think he's the only one I'm confident in saying that about, but he is now one of Blackburn's best players. He's a left back and he's just absolutely smashing it in the Championship. And he will be picked up by a Premier League team at some point. The others I'm not so sure about, but these were players that, back in the 90s, early 2000s, that Dario would sell for $1 million a year, and that would tick over for the next year. And then we would do it again the next year. Just doesn't happen anymore. So whilst I love the academy, I really do. I love the fact that we play Crewe lads in the Crewe way that have been schooled by Crewe, and there's very much that feel amongst the club as a whole, from the board down to the staff, down to players, to the fans. We all know that it is becoming harder and harder to maintain it, I think. I
mean, that's the challenge for, I suppose, a lot of clubs at this level. I mean, you guys still get decent-ish fees for players, whereas a lot of clubs struggle now because of the EPPP setup, don't they? It just screws clubs over, and we know that from experience. We've got two goalkeepers who've been out us. In James Trafford, who's now on loan at Bolton Wanderers from Manchester City. He left us after EPPP came in, so we didn't get that much money for him. It was a bit frustrating. Whereas Dean Henderson, who was in our academy, we're still getting decent money from him now because he left before EPPP. So I suppose it shows the difference, doesn't it? For clubs at our level, it's not been that great a deal, has it? I think it's fair to say.
No, we get screwed over with that as well. We lost a couple of lads to Liverpool. We've lost a couple of lads to Chelsea. Further back, we lost a couple of lads to Stoke City, which is disappointing. They're our local rivals. I mean, we've been in very different leagues for a while now, so it's difficult to say they're our big rivals. But the idea that going to Stoke is better than Crewe as an academy prospect is disappointing, I think. But it's just the way it is. You know, I don't want to take up too much of your podcast time talking to you about the people that run football and the clubs at the top of football and how they're just destroying the game for everyone else involved. But I mean, I could spend a good hour talking about that if you wanted to, but it's not what you've invited me on for.
Hey, we could quite happily talk about that because it's frustrating to us as well. Well, talking about coming, let's talk about your manager, Alex Morris. So, I have to admit, when we were doing our pre-season preview, I had to look up a bit about him because I was like, oh, I don't recognise that name. Who is he? And then I realised he's got no playing experience, but he's clearly been a part of the fabric of your club for many, many years now. He retired at the age of, I think it was 23, wasn't it, due to injury. He's never made a first-team appearance, but he's worked his way up in coaching roles, and now he finds himself as the main man, as the manager. That must be a huge challenge for him, though, to pick up a side that's clearly devoid of confidence from last season and try and turn it round and try and stamp some sort of philosophy on the team, because he's clearly very well thought of if they've decided to give him the role.
Yeah, I think when Dave Artell was sacked last year, probably the word inevitable is probably fair. I was very vocal. I wanted a process. I wanted people to come in and have an interview, whereas it seems that Alex Morris was pretty much gifted the job of manager. Nothing against him as a person, as a coach, and what he's done for the club already. But I wanted other people to come in and just to see what was available, and we had people that used to play for Crewe that came up through Crewe's academy expressing an interest. So Rich Walker, who's in charge of development at Stoke, was interested. He was turned up to games. Justin Cochran, who was England under-17 manager, then he was at United. He's now left United to go be head of, I think, player development at Brentford. He didn't publicly say, I want the job at Crewe, but he played for us. He knows the system. He knows the club. And he came to watch the first game after Artell was sacked. So clearly he was saying, if you want to talk to me, I'm available. So Alex Morris, his playing career is non-existent, almost. But he was one of those people that Dario was really good at in keeping around football. If you weren't going to make it, then I'll train you to be a coach. The other example of someone like that is someone who is absolutely flying at the minute is Neil Critchley, who's obviously just left his job as manager at Blackpool to go take over as Stephen Gerrard's assistant. He is literally the same story. Didn't make it as a first-team footballer at Crewe, stayed on at the club, learned how to coach from a very, very early age, and then he's gone off to Liverpool from Crewe, gone to Blackpool to take that job, and now he's with Gerrard at Villa. So Alex Morris has seen that. They know each other. They're friends. I think his way is different. He stayed at Crewe. He's been loyal to the club, and I think that was part of him getting the job, was that loyalty being repaid back to him. So hopefully it works. I really do hope it works. Like I say, I just wish there'd been more of a process. And to go to your other point about turning the tide, I think that's what the first aim is. Last year was so bad. It was, we were turning up to games, and I would say there's no point watching. We're going to go 1-0 down, and as soon as that happens, that's the end of the game. It's just how long can we hold out for by the end. So that had to change.
In terms of your hope,
I think go on.
Sorry, I was going to say, in terms of your hopes for this season, is that basically then the aim, essentially, to sort of steady things out for a little bit and rebuild towards maybe challenging next season for promotion?
That's not what the club said. At the start of the season, the club said promotion, but I think every club has to say that. Otherwise, they're getting all sorts of trouble from fans. I personally said somewhere around 12th. And, if you look at the table now, we are somewhere around 12th. It is a disappointing season because I think it started off, there is promise within this team, but they're not quite good enough yet. The results at the moment have been a bit frustrating, and it's the lack of creativity, I think, that's annoying, because I want to see Crewe get the ball down. I want to see them playing nice football, and I want to see them creating chances. And there's not too much of that at the minute. So the results haven't been great, and the performances haven't been great. So it's not the best watch at the minute, but it's such an improvement on last year that I think most fans are happy to see this. And it's sort of, it's got a bit of a free pass right now. That won't last forever, but at the moment, so long as we're doing okay and the points are ticking over, then I think it's okay.
Well, let's talk about players with links in both squads. First up, we'll start with the two from your squad who've got links to Carlisle. That'll be Kelvin Mellor and Rod McDonald. Now, Kelvin's spell at Carlisle was a little bit shorter than Rod's, but both solid players for us. We were both, fairly happy with the jobs they did, but I don't think there was there wasn't shedding of tears when they both left in the summer. It was just, thank you, all the best, and, good luck for wherever you go next. How are they both sitting? I mean, Kelvin Melly, you'll know for years. Obviously, he started out Crewe, didn't he? But Rod McDonald's coming in, and from what you were saying to me when we spoke for your pod, is that your fans have been quite impressed with him so far.
Yeah, let's start with Kelvin. So I think when he signed, I don't know if this is true, but I've been told this is true, so I'm going to pass it off. The club signed him first in the summer, and they didn't announce it because they were scared of the backlash of jobs for the boys, re-signing these ex-players and all of this. So we signed Connor Thomas from Cheltenham. That he was announced first, and then the next day, Kelvin Mellor was announced. I said at the time when we signed him, and then pre-season, if he's been signed as a right back backup and he's come back and doing his coaching badges, which is I believe is what he's doing with the Alex now, he's doing his badges at the same time as playing. Fine, happy with that. That's the system we've got at the club, and he's pretty much played every minute of every game, and he's been on the most part fantastic. He's really solid. He's bigger than he was when he was a young lad at the club the first time round. He's obviously more knowledgeable on the game. And I think the thing that surprised me the most when I first started watching him this year is he's still able to get up and down the pitch. I thought that might have gone with the fact that he is now at the end of his career rather than the start of his career. But yeah, he's been really good. He has made a couple of errors. The biggest one was in the Pizza Cup game against Bolton. So if you're going to do it then. Yeah, exactly. No one cares less about that. But yeah, in the league, he's been mostly solid. Rod McDonald, again, quite a lot of negative feedback. And I know the people that are going to be listening to this are mostly Carlisle fans, but signing a centre-back that wasn't good enough for, was it 20th place for Carlisle last season? Yeah. So yeah, signing a centre-back from 20th place Carlisle who was deemed surplus to requirements was not something that went down well with the majority of the fans on like Twitter or anywhere like that. But yeah, he's been superb. He's starting centre-back along with club captain Luke Offord, and the two of them are doing really well together. They seem to have formed a partnership. Luke Offord's a bit better on the ball. Rod McDonald's a bit better at doing the dirty stuff. And, we're doing okay. We've kept more clean sheets this year than I think we did last year already, which, it's not saying a lot, but it's a start. It's something to build on. So, yeah, I think both of them have been good, solid signings. And I think most Crewe fans would agree with that.
Well, let's talk about the one player in the Carlisle squad who's got a link to Crewe, and that's Corey Whelan. Now, again, we mentioned him just before. I think we were having a little chat, and he's not one that pulled up many trees at Crewe, it's fair to say. Just had a brief loan spell with you guys.
No, he was just on loan from Liverpool. He was one of, if not the first, Dave Artell loan signings when he came in as manager. It was a while ago now, and I think the fact that I'm struggling to remember what he did probably sums him up. He came in, he wasn't terrible, he wasn't great, he was a young lad on loan from a big club gaining that first team experience, and the player that you have now, I would imagine, is different to the player that we had 6-7 years ago.
I mean,
whenever it was.
He's a solid performer, is Corey. He's reliable enough. He's got the same issue as Rod in that he's got no pace at all. And if you can get him on the turn with a bit of pace, he will struggle to keep up quite often. But realistically, I mean, there's a chance he might play in the game, but he's probably fifth choice centre-back out of the 6 I think we've got, at the moment. So, yeah, that said, though, he is vice-captain, strangely enough. But yeah, he's a good, solid, reliable pro. And I think Semo really likes his attitude, actually, in the way he's basically responded to the fact that he wasn't involved that much last season, but he's always been reliable when he's been called upon. Before we get on to the predictions, any danger men in your squad that our fans should keep an eye out for?
I think most Crewe fans' current favourite player is Courtney Baker-Richardson. He was signed from Newport in the summer. Newport lost both their starting strikers last year with Dom Telford obviously going to Crawley. I think, again, we were sort of a little bit like, we've got the wrong one. Dom Telford's the one, the top scorer, gone to Crawley, Bitcoin Bros and all of this. We played Crawley a week ago and we won 1-0 and Courtney Baker-Richardson scored, and he's started off life at Crewe like he's born to play at Gresty Road. He's just been such a nice breath of fresh air after watching last season. He's a big striker. He loves to get involved with defenders and all of that. He's got a red card in him at some point this season. I'm convinced. But I don't care because it's nice to see a Crewe player put himself about. We don't get many of them. We're known for nice play and maybe a little bit easy to beat, that sort of thing. If you get in our faces, you can't do that with him. He's not going to let you. And he's just scoring goals. I think he's on 7 already. I think he only got 10 last year at Newport for the whole season. So it just at the moment it seems to be working for him at the club. And from my point of view and from Crewe fans' point of view, long may that continue. Unfortunately, there's not too many others. We've scored 1 goal every game in September so far. Completely, because we're going to be playing on you on 1st of October. So we scored 1 goal in every game in September. Our main attacking creative player is Callum Ainley, and he's very much someone that splits the fans' opinions. He's one of our academy players that is still there. And normally if they're still there, there's a reason why they're still there. He's 24 now. He's not really kicked on. I probably wouldn't have given him a new deal. I was made to eat my words. So at the start of this season, he started off really, really well. Last few games, he's completely gone off the boil, and then he went off yesterday with what looked like quite a serious arm or shoulder injury. So he's probably almost certainly going to be out for the game on Saturday. That does leave us very, very short on creative players. We've got a nice solid base now in terms of the defence and the holding part of the midfield. The place where we're lacking is anyone to, create chances, create play. But I think that's not a surprise. Most League Two teams, I think, aren't overflowing with little diminutive Portuguese number 10s. That's where Crewe are currently poor, I would say.
No, it's fair enough. Right, I've kept you for quite a while now, Stuart, so thank you very much for your time. First, before you go, though, let's have your prediction for the game.
Well, I think from what I've seen and what I've heard about Carlisle, it's similar sort of problems. Solid, but maybe lacking a bit with creativity, possibly, except for a couple of players. So I'm going to be optimistic, and I'm going to say Rod and Kelvin will keep a clean sheet and we'll win 1-0.
Ooh, 1-0. Okay, that first home defeat for the season for us then, if you think. Right, Stuart, thanks for your time and all the best for the rest of the season after this weekend's game.
No problem. Yeah, thank you, Lee.
Okay, thanks, Stuart, for that little catch-up we had about Crewe Alexandra. One again, we're probably not quite as positive as the Grimsby lads there, Dan, but Crewe are always a side that are going to produce good young players, aren't they? So there's always an unexpected element, I suppose, to the way they play.
Yeah, I mean, they're known universally for their bringing players through, and have been for a number of years. And just mentioning fees there, I think you find now, whereas you used to maybe get £500,000, £1 million up front, you'll maybe get half of that now, and it's all add-ons, isn't it? It's all padded out with add-ons. But
even those
it's
add-ons,
a different game now.
Even those add-ons don't necessarily get you all the way up to what you previously.
No, not at all. Not at all.
I mean, they're probably looking back and thinking, when they sold Dean Ashton for, was it 5 million? Something they sold him for back in the day, and Nick Powell going for $1 million in League Two. Also, we got $800,000 for Jared Branford at that age, but those kind of sales are very rare these days at this level, aren't they? Really? So
yeah, definitely.
So there you go. In terms of information on the referee, it's not been announced yet who's going to be refereeing this game, so I haven't got that detail, unfortunately.
Too early in the week.
Yeah, that's the problem with doing the double header on a Monday rather than on a Thursday. So there you go. Head-to-head record. One of the clubs we played the most times, actually. It never really occurred to me this, but obviously they would have been down at our level quite a long time until they got up to the Championship in sort of the mid to late 90s. 96 meeting, 42 wins for us, 14 draws and 39 wins for the Railwaymen. So fairly well balanced, actually, isn't it, really, in terms of results between the two teams, I think it's fair to say.
Not many draws there, is there?
No, there isn't really. So hopefully guaranteed a bit of entertainment for this game of the weekend, you'd hope. In terms of Crewe's summer transfer business, underwhelming? Is that a fair assessment, do you think?
Yeah, definitely, especially when they signed...
two players that we let go.
McDonald and Mellor, yeah.
Yeah, I think Mellor's obviously got the connection there, hasn't he? But, yeah.
They didn't bring many in, really, did they? 8 altogether, and I think 3 of them are on loan. It's not the biggest. They got rid of a few, as we know, But I'm just
12.
looking.
They let 12 go. I'm just counting them up. 12. They let go.
I'm just sort of looking through the signings and their squad, and
it's a tight squad. 21 players.
Yeah, there's not much stands out, is there?
But what I say about that is, as we said before, they can always rely to throw a 16 or 17-year-old in, and they're probably going to be better quality than, for instance, a 16, 17-year-old that we're going to throw. Because I don't know if a lot of our fans will realise, but in terms of category academies, I think we're category 3, aren't we? In terms of the set we've got, they're a category 2, so they put like £1 million a year into their academy because they know they're going to get it back. Well, in the past they've known that. It's a bit more challenging now, but yeah, so they can always rely on throwing a young player in coming up through the system. But yeah, I look at it and I think, particularly in defence, I mean, McDonald and Mellor are both starting games. They felt Mellor was coming in as a backup, towards the end of the season to do his badges. His career, to do his badges, back at Crewe, his first club, and that kind of thing. But it seems they're quite reliant on him, which worried me a little bit because he was okay for us, but didn't pull up any trees massively, did he? Really? I mean, in terms of options, who would you rather have in there now, Dan? Would you rather have Kelvin Mellor or Finn back?
Finn back
every day of the week, wouldn't you?
Yeah, even though he's not our player.
Exactly. So yeah, that shows the difference. Callum Ainley, as he mentioned, there, is one of those young players who is threatened to be a good player for them, but he's 24 now, and if you haven't really got the big move by the time you're 24, there, are you ever going to be, the next big thing at Crewe? Probably not, are you?
Yeah,
it's a tough one for him. And then, like I said, in attack, Baker Richardson. It's bad, that, isn't it? You look at the two lads who left Newport in the summer, Dom Telford and Baker Richardson. You'd have thought Crawley had maybe got the better deal with getting Telford in, but actually it looks like Crewe have got a much better deal, don't they? With Baker Richardson getting all the goals.
Yeah, he's scored a few goals, hasn't he? He's 6 in 10 in the league.
Yeah. Did he start out at Aston Villa? If I imagine that in my head, I'm just trying to double check it and look up his career, but he's
Swansea.
Swansea was that right? Okay, well, that makes sense. I suppose with what you call it, Newport. Yeah, but yeah, he's an interesting one, wasn't he? Because obviously he had his time at Newport. He didn't really do much there, to be honest. He's had quite a few loan spells looking at non-league clubs. In fact, he started at Coventry. Actually, he was at Coventry for quite a while as a young kid. But yeah, he's had his spells at Barrow and Barnet and a few other clubs, but seems to have found his feet at Crewe. I think sometimes players just fit other clubs, don't they, really? So there you go. Last time out, again, we're playing against sides that have suffered defeat, 2-1 defeats at home in the next 2 games. Crewe lost 2-1 to Mansfield. I mean, Mansfield are flying high, so they're going to beat teams, aren't they? But it's the way they collapsed. Well, that's true. It's true. That's just how good we are, though.
I'll just get that in there.
But 2-1 defeat. But the most disappointing thing is they took the lead on 70 minutes, Crewe, through Baker Richardson, and then they concede on 87 and 90 plus 3 to throw away at 3 points and then a point even. That shows a bit of fragility there.
That could bode well for us because we tend to finish quite well, don't we?
That's the first thing I thought was great. Yeah. We finish games strongly. Now let's take the positives from that. So what I hope is that when we go into this game, we're not just going to knock the ball long, because Rod McDonald will soak that up all day and he'll win all his aerial challenges against Dennis and against even Patrick if he's fit, and probably Stretton as well. If we get the ball on the floor, play it around him, get him on the turn. That's the thing with McDonald. It's not so much that he's slow. It's on the turn he's really slow, isn't it? That's where he's got an issue.
Yeah, well, we know that Rod isn't the quickest. Cruise ships turn quicker, to be quite honest. And, that's probably why he is at the level he is. At this stage of his career, if he had a bit of pace when he turned, he'd probably play at League One level, Yeah. But no, he is what he is, isn't he?
Yeah, so it's definitely it's weird. I'm saying it is a weakness, isn't it? He's lack of pace, and with the pace we've got in some of our players, I think Stretton's got a bit more pace than he gets credit for. Actually, to be fair, he looks quite nippy over a few yards. So get him on the turn up with Rod. Don't let Rod get. He's got to get into his head Stretton if he starts his game. Hopefully, be Patrick fit in the nicest way possible. But just don't let McDonald get hold of you early on, because if he starts getting hold of you, you'll struggle. You've got to get him on the turn as early as you can. Overall, form-wise, Crewe, mean, their recent records are not particularly great. They've only won 1 of the last 6, 3 draws and 2 defeats in that period as well. I think for them it's a season of consolidation for Crewe, isn't it? Really, rebuild and probably get a couple of youngsters into the squad and get themselves ready for next campaign. I think I know they're up there at the moment, but it feels like a little bit of a false position at the moment, maybe.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect them to be up there.
I'd fully agree with that.
Okay, well let's talk about United. Injuries wise, doesn't get any easier, does it? I suppose there's a little bit of hope in there, and that it sounds like Patrick might feature on Tuesday night against Grimsby. It's hard to tell. I wonder if he might look and think, another journey on a bus, let's just wait until the weekend, make sure he is fully fit for that game, rather than risk him. Do you think?
Yeah, maybe if he feels it, have him on the bench possibly.
Yeah, possibly. It might be
give him 20 minutes towards the end.
Yeah.
You know.
But one positive is it sounds like Edmondson might be fit for the weekend.
Yeah, you said last week that I think it was Edmondson. Was it Barkley as well on the grass, which is good to hear.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm looking ahead a little bit here, Dan. I'm looking ahead to around about a month's time. We play Stockport away in a midweek game, and by that point, we should have Edmondson and Patrick both fit. We should have Barkley back fit. We should have Toby back fit as well. Hopefully Morgan's thing is just a slight little strain and he only misses a couple of games. Have him fit. At that point, you suddenly look and think, right, we've got some real options here, don't you? It's getting through this next 3 or 4 weeks, really, isn't it? It's key.
Yeah, definitely. If we're still, if we can get a couple of results whilst waiting for these players to come back, we're going to be in a decent position.
I think even as much as that, staying undefeated, even if it means maybe you have in a 3-game period you have a win and 2 draws, fine, live with that. That's practically 1 point. It's over 1.5 points a game, which is a good record, really. You're pretty much picking up, 3 points every other game. That's the key thing I think for us at the moment. Get through that period. And if you stay to the point where you've only lost 1 game coming into 12, 13 games into the season, you'd be pretty happy with that, wouldn't you? So that's the way to look at it, definitely. So feeling is Tuesday night for Grimsby. We can't really look ahead to Crewe in terms of the lineup, but the hope is if Patrick's fit, probably maybe not risk him, keep on the bench and just go with the same starting 11 that eventually started against Newport. Or do you maybe bring Hilton in, or do you maybe just keep him as a sub for now?
I think Hilton's just off the bench at the moment. Yeah. Like I said, Gibson's going to score as we predicted. So
can't drop him then, can you? There's no way you can do that. There you go. Right. Well, come on. Let's do our predictions then for the which game it was now? The Crewe game. Let's have your prediction for the Crewe game.
I'm going for a 3-1 win. Mm-hmm. Gibson's going to get his 2nd goal in a week. Christian Dennis is going to score, of course. That's just the stock answer these days. And I'm going to go for Owen Moxon finally hitting one that goes in.
Oh, there you go. Right, that's the predictions there. Right, Crewe game, I'm going to go for a 3-0 win. And I'm going to go Dennis, Edmondson, and John Mellish will get the other goals. That's my 3 goal scorers. Here's what Mike had to say for the Crewe game.
I'm going for a 2-0 win with Jordan Gibson getting his first of the season and Christian Dennis getting a goal as well.
There's so little variety in our choices at times, isn't there, really? But there you go. Right, there's Mike's. That's Mike's contribution for now. He will be back next week. I'm going to try and get him onto next week's show, basically, because he hasn't been on for a while. In terms of the predictions-wise, the table stays the same. You've got 8 points, I've got 7, and Mike's got 4, because none of us were mad enough to predict the Corey Whelan goal, were we? So there we go. X-Files, Dan, a quiet week as you'd expect with the internationals.
Yeah, it wasn't the busiest of weeks. Ryan Bowman scored the winner for Shrewsbury in a 2-1 win over Burton. Aaron Hayden scored in Wrexham's 6-0 win. I think Wrexham are coming up this year, aren't they?
It's a straight fight between them and Chesterfield, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
That's the big fight at the top.
Yeah. Mark Beck, regular at the moment. He got a brace for Darlington, 2-0 win over Peterborough Sports.
Still does my head in this. We talked about this the other week, didn't we? It's utterly ridiculous, but there you go.
Yeah. And Dave Simonton scored the opener for Workington in a 2-1 win over Skelmersdale United.
Yeah, they're heading back form.
Other news, Brad Potts won Championship Goal of the Month for his brilliant volley against Luton. I think we mentioned that when he scored it, didn't he? And James Hooper, who we mentioned, I caught this on the radio on Saturday. His new club is Runcorn Linnets.
Great stuff. There's two clubs in Runcorn Town and Runcorn Linnets. I always think that's mad at non-league level, especially when they're at a fairly similar level, to have two clubs. It just seems a bit crazy. I mean, the ultimate one is, but the crack about Northwich Victoria? There's been like a split between the supporters and the people running the club there, isn't there? So there's two clubs. There's the original Northwich Victoria, but then there's a splitter club called 1874 Northwich. It's always a little bit crazy, isn't it? But
yeah, the history of the Northwich area clubs is very interesting in recent seasons.
But Northwich were in the Football League years ago, weren't they? Like in the very, very early days. I'm sure they were, weren't they? I'm sure they were a Football League club, and yeah, they've had quite a history. When you think back to the fact that we were playing them in like pre-season friendlies, and we even played them in the national in the conference, didn't we? Towards the start of the season, but they weren't playing in Northwich. They were playing at Whitton Albion.
Yes,
as well. So
they're all interlinked, these places.
It's great. Yeah, basically they end up players basically just switch between them all the time, don't they? It's very interwoven. That's it then, Dan. Thanks very much once again. Thanks again to our sponsors, the London branch, for their support. Upcoming episodes, obviously, we'll have a preview for the Hartlepool game, which will be back to sort of the normal time next week, where it's done. We'll get something proper done for that. But yeah, other than that, the interview episodes, hopefully we'll have one of them coming up in the next couple of weeks. We're hoping to get one out. In case you haven't guessed, I'm obviously hoping to sort some interviews out on Thursday, basically, which will be coming your way in the near future. And yeah, that's it, I think, isn't it, really, Dan? There's not much else to say at the moment.
No, not much. No. I'm looking forward to the interviews.
Yeah, should be good stuff, that, shouldn't it, really? And yeah, well, like I said, there'll be special episodes. They'll probably come out sort of earlier in the week rather than towards the end of the week. So you've got a couple of things to listen to going into the match day. Dan, thanks for your time.
No bother.
Thanks everyone for listening, and up the Blues.
Up the Blues.